let's see what maximiliandood thinks of devilmaycry 5.
I honestly feel that this game is possibly, and I would even give like best action game ever before to games like Bayonetta because of like set pieces and stuff like that. And while Bayonetta 2 is a game that has great set pieces and crazy over-the-top action stuff, I think I like the combat more in Devil May Cry, or Devil May Cry 5 specifically. And DMC 5 is... it's kind of the epitome of what I love about video games.
It's the epitome of what he loves about video games, as he explained, due to having incredible gameplay. And it all makes sense considering his content. He has been playing fighting games pretty much his entire life. They are games with high skill ceiling, combo-based games with lots of player expression. Hack and slash games take that to a whole new level minus the versus part, since they are single player games. And Devil May Cry 5 stands at the top of the hack and slash genre.
Like, one of the things I like the most about fighting games is fighting games that give the player a lot of tools, but isn't like overbearing, where you feel like you're sort of burdened by all the mechanics in the game and you're just trying to wrap your head around what the game can do and what the mechanics are. Usually if the mechanics are straightforward enough where they're just fun, you start to get ideas and you're like, oh man, I can do this into this, I can start messing around with that, oh shit, it leads into that. And that feeling is amazing, like, of discovery of like, oh, this works, maybe that'll work, oh my god, that works, oh shit, does this work? And that's honestly one of my favorite things about fighting games, much less video games in general. And Devil May Cry 5 knows this. Like, as an action game, it's like, I don't think anyone plays any action game like it's a fighting game, except people that play Devil May Cry games, specifically Devil May Cry 3, and especially Devil May Cry 4. To a lesser extent, DMC, but the level of, like, execution and finesse it takes to be really damn good at these games, and a deep understanding of the game's mechanics between, like, enemy stepping and, like, jump canceling and all the stuff that the game just gives you access to, it makes it very, very cool.
Everything he says in this Devil May Cry 5 review video of his is correct and fully consistent with his personality, his taste, his entire career. No one would have a reason to question him about anything he said here.
The toolset the characters have makes it so much fucking fun. Seeing them do stuff and the personality of all the characters. There were so many moments in this game where I just broke down, like, emotionally. Where I, like, deeply feel that what is in this game is so much what I love about video games, that they fucking killed it. So many moments that are just ridiculously exciting, that are poignant to the music, and the music's just great through and through. There's nothing... I don't have any issues with any of the music. I guess, like, some traversal could be an issue that some people would have with the game, but I missed out on a whole bunch of stuff in my first playthrough. I really liked the environments that I was going through. I thought they were kind of neat, and for the most part, I'm struggling to find things that I don't like about the game. I'd say on, like, a personal level, if I was to give the game a critical review, it'd be like a 9 out of 10. But for me personally, it's like a 12. It's like a 12 out of 10. Capcom's back, praise the sun type shit. Like, I can't even imagine.
So despite the game being that good, if he were to review it critically, it would be a 9 out of 10. And I do agree with that, even though it did set up a new standard for the hack and slash genre. It's still a game with a couple of flaws, mainly because of V.
And now with, like, RE2 in this game, like, they're killing it. Like, absolute dream come true. I never thought it would even ever be this good. And that's because not just, like, thematically and story-wise and quality and polish, like, the game has everything. Absolutely everything. And so many moments just are the reason I play video games in this game. And it doesn't come with, like, a backhanded element, like Asura's Wrath. Because I love Asura's Wrath, but there's a backhanded part of that game where all the ridiculously hyped stuff that happens comes at the cost of, like, the core gameplay of the game kind of sucks ass, and it's a QTE fest, a fun QTE fest, but it's a backhanded element, you know. It sort of ruins a lot of the experience of the game. And that isn't here at all with this game. Like, DMC5 is just, it's the true package. It's like, it's a video gamey-ass video game. It has parts that are going to reward you for high execution and leaves the barrier of entry pretty low that anyone can play, but the high barrier of entry for doing amazing-looking shit is there. And the way the game is so poignant with that high-level, like, crazy stuff and focusing on that action and making you feel like you're awesome for pulling shit off, I don't think there's anything like it in games. I really don't. I think this game is something special, man. And I didn't think I would be personally giving a Game of the Year to any other game but Resident Evil 2 at the start of 2019, and I actually would. Like, personally, I would say that Devil May Cry 5 is my Game of the Year. I would actually go on, outside of just thinking that it's the best Devil May Cry game, I would personally say this is one of the best Capcom games ever made. I am not joking on that. This game made me break down with how fucking awesome some of the moments were. And it wasn't because it was just a cool cutscene. You were playing that shit. Like, it was happening to you when you were playing. It's perfect. That's exactly what I want. I honestly think it's one of Capcom's best games ever made.
So he also likes Ashura's Wrath, which is actually garbage as a video game. Maybe it would be a fun anime to watch, but it's pretty much unplayable. There is nothing interesting to play there. But it appeals to his taste, so you can already see he likes some bad games. But he is still able to acknowledge that they are bad, like he understands the problems of that game, and he only views it as a good game on a personal level.
I don't think I can give it any higher of a personal recommendation. They did it. They have done it in ways that I never thought they could.
Alright, now let's see what he has to say about Sekiro. Sekiro has the best gameplay in the Soulsborne franchise, but it's still bad. It's a very repetitive game, so someone who cares a lot about gameplay will not see it as something special.
No, I don't think this boss was very fun. When I did it the first time, and I'm not having a super great time doing it again. Not having a super great time doing it all over again. I feel like after we killed the snake, the game started going downhill. It was weird. After the snake died, it was all really interesting. And then a lot of what's happened after that, like that village with enemies that are like similar enemies that they just pop back up. You run into ghosts of guys from previous in the game. They're not new enemies, they're just ghosts from the same shit that's been popping up throughout the rest of the game. You run into a frustrating as fuck, like, lady mini-boss that just vanishes when you try to hit her, and it's a frustrating fight, and then you get the monk boss, which is a frustrating fight, and then you...
As you can see, he has already starting to cope with the fact that the game is not that good, but he's also afraid to voice his true feelings clearly, because he's fully aware that a huge portion of his fans really want him to play and finish Sekiro, and they won't take no as an answer. So he is doing kind of a damage control by saying it's not that great, it's not that much fun, when deep down inside he wants to say it's trash and stop playing.
Yeah, it's like... It's been a little repetitive for like the past 3 hours. Maybe it's just me.
The entire game was repetitive, it's just the enemy variety can give you the illusion of doing something different, since there is a little bit of different approach to the enemies, but the core combat is the exact same. Just learn the enemy animations and time it with a parry button. And he can't fully express himself to address the problem. He still thinks maybe it's just him, because the Soulsborne fandom likes to gaslight people, as if forcing someone to keep playing a game is going to make them love it. It's a certain mental illness that is called post-boss clarity, when they feel really good after finally beating a boss and getting out of the terrible situation they were once in. Maximilliandood suffers from the same mental illness as the rest of the Souls fans. I don't know if that's something that happened to him after he got forced to play these games, or it's something he had to begin with, but I know for sure that he does have it. And of course I'm not going to analyze that in this video. That's a video for another time.
Oh, it's R1 the video game. That is what you do. Ever since the snake died, the game got a little... kinda lame. And yeah, I mean, I was kinda hoping you would get something else than just the sword. I've been pressing R1 a lot in this game. And by the end of it now, I'm starting to feel like I've been doing the same thing for many hours. It's good, and it's really fun. But I do kind of wish there was a little bit more variety in terms of what you can do. Because these things end up being only so useful.
He was about to say bad, but he's afraid since that's kind of a heavy word, and he said kinda lame. It's kinda lame and bad, but it's also good and very fun. As you can see, the consistency is already broken with all the damage control he's trying to do.
What? The fuck?
Alright, now let's see what he thinks about Nioh. For those who don't know, the Nioh games are action games with good gameplay, and they have some RPG elements and some Souls-like elements. People even consider them Souls-likes, but since the gameplay is vastly different, I personally don't.
Fun. This game is super fun. Nioh has always just been Souls games with fantastic combat, right? Let's just give you a Dark Souls game, a Samurai Dark Souls game that gives you a shit ton of build variety and weapon variety. And let's have the combat be fucking great. Bloodborne is my, like, second favorite game of all time. I will not defend its combat in comparison to this game. Nioh 1 and Nioh 2 have better combat than all of the Souls games. Combat's just really fun. Yeah, it's great. No, Final Fantasy VII is my favorite game, but Bloodborne is my second favorite. No, I've always thought that. I've always thought the Nioh... These games have better combat than any of the Souls games. Compared to Sekiro, I think it's got better combat than Sekiro. Problem is, Sekiro is only played in one way, and one way with some minor modifications. This game has a shit ton of weapons with a shit ton of things you can get per weapon, and a shit ton of other magic modifiers and stuff that dramatically affects the game, you know? Sekiro's cool because of the parrying stuff, but that once that's over, it's not... It's only so good, right? It's only so much fun parrying the enemy, pressing circle as they thrust into you, and jumping over their sweeps. That's about it. It's like a rock, paper, scissors sort of thing that you have to deal with. But yeah, where this game... Where Sekiro might be lacking in some of the combat, it makes up for with incredible level design. Like, the level design of these games is kind of bad. I don't think it's great. I think it's, like, adequate. The level design in Sekiro and Souls games is incredible. And really, what's nutty is that level design really makes Sekiro and Souls games stand out. People don't give it enough credit, I feel. Like, you don't realize that, damn, this shit is amazing. Shit is amazing.
So, Bloodborne is his second favorite game of all time, and Final Fantasy VII, the original, is his number one favorite game of all time. Now mind you that he has a list of his top favorite games of all time, but the list is not made by considering how good a game objectively is, because he is fully aware there are better games than both Bloodborne and Final Fantasy VII Original, but they are his personal favorites because of the emotional impact they had to him when he first played them. So him saying Bloodborne is his second favorite game doesn't have any objective value here, it's just how he feels about the game, nothing to do with the overall quality. And the reason of it being his second favorite game is purely the story and lore. He is aware of how bad the combat is in that game, and he still has a hard time expressing how much he disliked Sekiro and pretends as if it's anywhere close to the Nioh games.
Movesets are crazy fun. It's an action game. It's made by the Ninjagaiden team, so the combat is like 3 to 4 times better than a Souls game, a traditional Souls game. This game is very loosely a Souls game.
Let's hope it's more fun than Nioh 1. I think Nioh 1 was a really good game with combat that was better than most Souls games, in my personal opinion. But was it, damn, it's like the same dogs and cats that you can get. The level design was definitely a little lacking.
Yeah, Nioh's a much different game than Sekiro. I'd argue the combat's actually better in Nioh than Sekiro, but the world is way better in Sekiro, like, holy shit. Do I prefer Nioh or Dark Souls? I think the combat in Nioh, is pretty good when you're actually, combating. I think it's pretty good. but it doesn't beat the level design in the world of the Souls series. Any of FromSoft's games. It's just better. I think it's just a solid like 8 out of 10, you know? It's like an 8. It's good. It's just, it's not, don't expect like, you know, Souls level of, I don't usually feel, most of the time, I don't feel super cheated out of death in Souls games and stuff like that, but there's some super weird shit that has been going on.
So he admits the combat in Nioh 2 is 3 to 4 times better than the Souls games. Meaning, even if Nioh 2 was a 10 out of 10 combat, the Souls games would be a minimum of 2.5 out of 10 to a maximum of a 3.3 out of 10 combat. Meaning they are pretty much unplayable trash. And Nioh 2 isn't even a 10 out of 10, it's an 8 out of 10, due to some balance issues and some minor bugs. And he admits to Nioh 2 being an 8 out of 10 as well. So, as you can see, he has a very hard time admitting that Nioh has way better gameplay than Souls-likes without immediately praising the Souls-likes for their level design or whatever.
Which is better, Nioh 2 or Sekiro? They're both, Sekiro is probably a better game overall, but Nioh 2 is better combat in my opinion. A constitution is health. Sekiro has some of the best level design in all of video games, so I would recommend you play Sekiro.
Yeah, Nioh's about having like all this mobility, but managing your mobility because of the key gauge. It's not really like Souls. Combat is really good. Nioh 2 has Nioh in general has better combat than any Souls, any FromSoft game. Better combat. They just do. And I keep telling people this, like, if you want the best Souls-like game, in terms of gameplay and combat, that is Nioh. Nioh combat is incredible. It's so sick. It's better than Lies of P, and guess what? I'm gonna be real. Bloodborne's the second best game of all time. We have this conversation a lot. Nioh has better combat. Nioh 1 has better combat than Bloodborne. It's just that the other elements that come together to make a Nioh a full game compared to FromSoft games, the other parts don't stack up at all. Like the music, the boss fights, you know, the enemy-to-enemy combat, the physical combat is amazing. It's so sick. Lies of P had really good combat too. It did. It has really good combat. Most of it feels pretty decent, but bro, Nioh combat is so responsive and every single weapon is nuts and everything can do so many things and it's a massive RPG. Everything can be modified and changed and adjusted. It's crazy though.
It feels like he needs to constantly do damage control so the Souls fans can stop arguing with him. Now let's see how honest he is and how he feels about Elden Ring.
I won't beat around the bucket. I think this is one of the greatest games of all time. I actually do. I don't know how much it goes down in terms of like a big personal for me, but I think as what this game executes on and how it wants to execute it, I think this is like a giant pinnacle of the industry type shit. It's not even game of the year. It's like game of the decade. It's like the game of the 2020 decade. That's because all of the Souls games that predate it essentially go into crafting its DNA, right? Essentially go into making the game what it is. That's one of the things that makes it so goddamn cool, you know? Is that it has little pieces and little tidbits of every Souls game that came before it. I know the next question you have is this better than Bloodborne? I would say yes. I think this is actually a better game than Bloodborne. With more stuff to do, more thought out, and in some places, I don't know if it's better executed, but I think as far as a game, yeah, I would recommend almost this over Bloodborne to a lot of people because its approachability and the way it's doing shit, you know? Do I think it's better than Bloodborne? I don't. Because Bloodborne is still, in my opinion, has so many little other elements that are just so damn cool. Funny enough, I ended up liking the story and the lore and the characters in this game quite a bit. Way more than I was anticipating. Because in Souls games, at least Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and Sekiro for a little bit, I was not a particular huge fan of the story. The story I felt was kind of like could pass by it. Some people really get into the Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 stories, and I think it's only okay. For some reason, this one just hits different, right? This one executes on certain ways that allow the discoverability of the giant world that you're in. So cool. Just to, like, learn a little bit more about what's happening, or why is this guy that way, or things like that. But I will say, I have never played a game where the open world, and much less the outside world, right? And the inside world are so brilliantly crafted. A lot of open world games, they'll essentially have your open world. When you eventually get to like a critical point in the game, which is like a big story moment, right? Big story parts of the game, one will feel way better than the other, you know? Like, one part of the game will feel really great, and the other part will feel lacking. I definitely do not think that is the case with this game. I think, once again, the dungeons and the level design is absolutely like FromSoft Mastercraft. The thing that makes Souls games isn't the combat, you know, and the graphics or stuff like that. It's the level design. Level design makes FromSoft games so amazing. And it feels amazing every single time you go through these levels and these dungeons and these giant areas that are unique and different and have puzzles and you have to solve them and all of this shit. And they're incredible in this game. God damn, the castles in this game that you have to go through, holy crap, it is so sick.
So, level design is what makes the Souls games. And if you care that much about level design and don't care much about the rest, then it definitely makes sense to hold the Soulsborne franchise really high. But, first of all, the dungeons are nothing special because they are repeated with very minor differences between each other, so they don't deserve much of a praise. And second of all, what the hell happened to the gameplay standards? Did your standards get thrown out of the window just because the level design is cool? How the hell does that work? You are making a review evaluating the overall game, not just the level design. How the hell can a game be Game of the Decade purely because of its level design when it's a combat-based game? In a combat-based game, obviously the most important thing is the combat. In a story-based game, the most important thing would be the story. The level design is not even tied to the combat. Just because you are walking to some visually pretty looking places doesn't mean the game is a masterpiece. For example, in Celeste and the Crash Bandicoot games, which are platformers, the level design is directly tied to the gameplay. That's how platforming games work. You move from one platform to another. The level design is important by default. And even if you have very basic mechanics like simple jumping, wall jumping, holding to the wall, the levels themselves, with all their physics, all the extra mini mechanics that they keep adding, make the gameplay way more interesting, way more complex. It's not about just doing the same basic platforming in pretty levels.
And the craziest part is that the open world shares a similar design philosophy but in different ways. So much about the open world just picks your attention. I'm gonna grab your attention, come over here. I'm gonna grab your attention, come check this out. You saw that? Go look at that. And I honestly tell people, if you are running around the map for more than 30 seconds and something weird or interesting hasn't happened, well, something weird or interesting happens like every 30 seconds. That almost seems really specifically designed between some enemy placements that lead you from one place to another, between tips or hints that are left across the world or the map in some way or direction. There's always something weird to discover from one point to the next. And that just takes so much effort. Just such a ridiculous amount of effort to permeate the world, just full of so much stuff and so much intrigue around every corner. And there's still a ton of stuff that I haven't seen. I could not believe that every single time I would go out with a goal of doing something, I would be led on this crazy adventure that would eventually lead to a boss fight, and now I'm under the world or some insane thing.
Nothing interesting ever happens, let alone every 30 seconds. The combat is extremely repetitive, and by playing, you soon realize that any piece of equipment you get does nothing interesting except for changing some parameters that will help you have an easier time doing the exact same thing, engaging in the exact same core combat, but killing enemies faster or having your character die slower after getting hit.
Once again, I didn't get the feeling that I was like missing out in this game. I really didn't. I just wanted to discover stuff because I felt during my playthrough that as I was playing and realizing how incredibly fun this is, and I've really never played a game like this that just keeps doing this over and over for so many 10s and 20 and 30 and 40 hours, I wanted that experience to last. I did. So I didn't want to, I didn't want that feeling like, man, I wish I can go through my first run of Elden Ring again and go through all that exploration. I feel like my first run, I enjoyed the shit out of it. And it was 140 hours. 140 hours of just running around, going on quests, going through the environments, discovering things, going left and right, and it's absolutely insane. Getting your money's worth is almost like funny to say that, because this game feels like this game should cost $120. And it's not even that it takes a long time, right? It's not even that like, oh, the game's long. No, it's the fact that like those hours are quality hours. Those hours usually are filled with nothing but adventure or discovery or new enemies, new items, new places, new things that the environment and the game is throwing at you. All the time.
So at some point, he starts deep-throating Miyazaki's cock really hard.
I personally feel that Elden Ring is a magnum what's it called? Magnum opus? It is their absolute pinnacle of like all of their games put together. Again, I don't think it is better than Bloodborne on a personal level, but I can separate my personal review from my critical review. And critically, this game it's gonna win Game of the Year this year, the next year, and the few years after that. At Game Awards this year, it's going to win Game of the Year for Best Racing Game. It's going to win Game of the Year for Best Fighting Game. It's going to win Game of the Year for Best Family Game, Best Party Game. It's going to win Best Nintendo Switch Game of the Year. It will win every Game of the Year for so goddamn long.
Alright, Max. You have shoved Miyazaki's dick way too deep into your throat. And I'm not even sure how you managed that, since Miyazaki's dick is not even that huge.
The only thing that could lead it to a point of contention is if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out towards the end of the year. And even this game is heavily, like, obviously, I don't think this game would exist without games like Breath of the Wild, but I do think there will be, this game sets a new standard. I don't want other companies to try to do what this game does. I don't. I don't think other games should try to do what Elden Ring does with its open world, because the thing that you're probably seeing on a surface level and doesn't, like, immediately hit your brain, this is the stuff that your brain recognizes it but you don't, is so much of the world's crafting is made with the gameplay design elements of Souls games, which is literally the Mastercraft industry standard of, like, the greatest shit there is in this industry, which is, like, Souls level design. And they do that with the open world. They actually do this with the open world itself. I don't think other open world games should try to be like Elden Ring.
He keeps going on and on, praising it endlessly, but he still hasn't talked about gameplay.
It's just crazy. You could play this game a billion different ways, right? Like, there's so much crazy stuff that can happen in permutations of mechanics on mechanics that the emergent, like, and I describe emergent gameplay as, like, mechanics and systems coming together in unique and unexpected ways, you know?
You can play the game in billion different ways, he says. I'm pretty sure you can only play in a way that engages in the core combat with different parameters, or you can cheese the game by exploiting the terrible AI with ranged attacks or some other bullshit from the tons of imbalanced items and builds this stupid game has.
Like, the perfect example is I saw somebody had a bleed weapon. They stabbed themselves with a bleed weapon and then casted like a healing spell, and it caused the character to go in this crazy glitchy like stun state all the time, even when doing emotes. They're like constantly in this ever cycle loop of like taking damage and recovering damage. Like, it's hilarious. And that's like an emergent gameplay thing. That's like a bunch of crazy systems on systems coming together to create something unexpected and new.
What the fuck did he just describe? How is that an interesting and unexpected way of the mechanics working together to create different kind of gameplay. It's just a simple way to buff yourself, and then you go ahead and engage with the core combat as usual, with the difference that you have that buff. Is he seriously pretending he doesn't understand depth after building an entire career playing fighting games? Having tons of options doesn't mean the game is deep. If every individual option by itself is shallow, then that's that. The game's combat itself doesn't allow for any depth, for any complexity. It is meant to be simple, and that goes for any of the options you are willing to pick. The options themselves don't automatically change it to deep, regardless of how many of them there are.
And that is, this whole game is that, you know? With the amount of, and it's going to come out, there's so many things that can be combined that some stuff is going to come across as crazy overpowered or crazy busted. And it will. I think that's kind of awesome. I think it's kind of cool that so many things can essentially take place on a player-to-player basis, which is what makes this game really fun to watch, to see how people are approaching the game differently. And that approach, I think, is done really well as well, because the game, the one thing that always made Souls games really challenging is that they are essentially linear. You have to get past this boss to progress the story. You have to get past this area and this area to go forward. So, and you're stuck, right? You can't do anything about that. And this game is different. You can just skip giant segments of the game and just move forward if you want. You can go to one place on the map and level up a whole bunch more, go to another, level up a whole bunch more, come back and just do it. Make that boss absolutely trivial if you want to.
Yes, you can go wherever you want, which means the open world itself was done well. But at the end of the day, you always end up at the same place, just fighting another shitty enemy or boss. For example, in games like Crash Bandicoot 3, there isn't an entire level design built that leads you to the choices you simply choose, but the choices actually do matter. Each level you pick is uniquely designed to experience completely different things. Even the genres are changing many times. It's not always just platforming.
I think it'll be very hard to top this. I think Elden Ring will become a franchise. I think it will become a series that they go on and make more games in the future. Bandai Namco does not scoff at, like, what, 12 million copies sold in, like, less than a month. I gush about this game. I think it's one of the greatest games ever made. I truly do. I really think there's a reason the word of mouth exists. The combat is not perfect, but the world and the level design is what carries FromSoft games, and it shines throughout this game.
You gushing over this game and the combat not being perfect are two massive understatements.
My critical score for the game is like a 10 out of 10. I think it's easily one of the greatest games ever and will be a hugely influential game on the industry going forward. And my personal score is also a 10 out of 10. Although it doesn't beat Bloodborne in terms of some execution and some things that I just personally love about Bloodborne so much.
So, both his personal score and his general score of Elden Ring is a 10 out of 10. How come? What happened to the gameplay standards? Does gameplay suddenly not matter anymore? Did his standards decrease over time? What happened here? Did he forget about all the flaws, all the repetitive stuff, the many copy-pasted enemies and bosses, the terrible balancing? No? None of that matters? Just give it a 10 out of 10, right? Alright.
I can't believe this game exists. In the day and age where single-player games and monetization exist the way it does with these big companies, I don't believe that they pumped out this in the industry in the state it's in. I don't believe it.
I mean, are you seriously surprised that a game doesn't have microtransactions and other scammy stuff? Is that kind of crap really normalized? I'm pretty sure there are tons of indie developers that never even thought about putting such crap into their video games. But of course those who are refusing to see outside of the mainstream games would not know any better. Alright, let's see what he thinks about the Elden Ring DLC.
I think Bloodborne is just a more interesting game to play because of combat. I really do. I feel like almost the wide vastness of how you can play Elden Ring, I started to feel it in some of the bosses here, where it's like, this boss wants me to play this way. Like, it wants me to do this way, or else I'm just gonna suffer. And I don't mean just like summons or mimicked here, I mean like, you know, like a shield or some shit. In Bloodborne, the game doesn't give you nearly that many options. but I feel like the focus of a game like Bloodborne makes the interactions really specific. Like, okay, well, you're going to play this game this way, but you're really going to enjoy it. For example, Sekiro does the exact same shit. The exact same shit. To me, Sekiro goes a bit too far, and it doesn't feel like there's enough variety. I don't feel black or white about any of this stuff, right? So Elden Ring is like almost too much variety, lacks focus, but such a vast scape of things you can do. Sekiro, way too focused. It's great, but you only get like this one kind of way to play the game. And it's like, Bloodborne is like right in between. It's like right specifically, like right there where it's like, okay, well, clearly you would want you to engage the game in this way. There's some other ways to play it, but this is kind of how you're going to do it. It's like the perfect mixture of all of them. Again, each game is amazing because they are different. These games at the surface look like they're all the same shit. Don't get me wrong. They really do. Like a Street Fighter 2 to like a Super Turbo. They look like the same shit, dude. But to me, it's like the little differences vastly change how you can play it. The bosses were nice, but I have not run into jank bosses like that, a couple of these jank-ass bosses, in a long time. I think that's one of my criticisms, is that some of the bosses in the DLC are really shit. I was almost surprised by it. Gaius was the first one that I was really surprised by, right? Gang fight is meant to be fought with other people too. The hippo wasn't so bad for me, but I don't know. Some of them were just like, having Gaius constantly getting stuck on walls in run animation and he can't be interrupted and he doesn't stop running until you get close to him and he has to hit you. I'm like, this is bad. This is actually bad.
So he didn't like some of the bosses, even though it's pretty clear he actually hated them because they are trash.
What are you supposed to fucking dodge this shit? Miyazaki? This shit seems absolutely whack. This just feels like trash. This feels like a Dark Souls 2 fight. That has a hitbox to it, okay. Well, that's cool. Well, they fly now. Pigs fly now. They fly now. That's good to know. Oh, all right. Feeling a little bit better about the fight after seeing that. Feeling slightly better. No. No. No, bro. Bro, no. No. Dude, no. This fight is not okay, FromSoft. This fight is not okay. This is like the jankiest shit I've seen in any of your games in a very long time. This is some whack shit. Everybody in the chat that is casually rolled by and is talking about this boss, everyone says this boss is like the worst shit. Everyone says this boss is jank and this shit is terrible. I haven't seen one person like be happy about this. Dead. Shit. Shit. Holy shit. Yeah, no, this one just feels like it doesn't feel like it's hard because he just does a shit ton of damage and he reaches everywhere. I get it, right? But I'm like, I've gotten him down to like 20% just by doing nothing. Nothing special. Just by whacking. This boss is putting me in a bad mood. This shit's putting me in a bad mood. I can't see shit. I can't. I've been trying to lock onto this dude for so long. Been literally trying to lock on. I was mashing R3 the whole fucking time and I couldn't get him. Couldn't get this dude in my camera view. Oh, because of course it instant kills you. Because of course it instantly kills you. It's a two-hitter insta-kill. See my entire life bar deplete. What the fuck? What the fuck, dude? Did you guys just see all my shit just whiff for no reason? Dude, what's happening? Why aren't you stunning? Like, the blood loss has already kicked in. How the hell are you not stunning? Jesus Christ. Wow, dude. Even like the dragons, no issues with this stuff, man. This fight just feels like I just have to get lucky. Just eventually gotta get lucky. I got stuck on some geometry. I got stuck in some random piece of geo on the floor. I don't know what the hell it was. Maybe it was a sword or something. I couldn't run past it. Got stuck. So yeah, that's a shitty thing. They want you to fight in this field, and I keep running into shit. Like, my character stops dead in their tracks sometimes when I'm running into the field in the environment, which is where they seemingly want me to fight him. What the hell, dude? Dude, I can't see anything. Holy shit, dude. I'm literally about to turn all the graphics down to nothing. I can't see shit. Visual clarity is gone. I'm just dodging and praying. Hoi. Thanks, game. You gave me the animation, the turn animation. Thank you. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. If there's one thing I dislike about Elden Ring and its bosses, why I like Bloodborne like kind of so much, there's not a ton of finesse to this game, right? Almost like everything eventually devolves into just doing like a jumping attack or just like one regular attack or something like that. And it's just all pattern recognition and all just eventually dodge everything. You know? Everybody's playthrough is eventually the same shit, just jumping around and doing this shit without a ton of finesse to it. It's just crazy. You could play this game a billion different ways, right? God damn, dude, fucking hair. Fucking hair. I swear to God, dude, the hair makes it so hard to see what's happening. It makes it so hard to see what's happening. Jesus Christ, dude, the fucking hair. Yeah, I get it all as a lingering effect. I completely understand. It's just that I can't even really tell if he's attacking yet because the hair isn't moving. His meteor attack seems impossible. That shit seems impossible. Like, what the fuck, man? One more time. I just have not seen enough of Phase 2. Game just never gives you any chance to even see what the fuck is going on in Phase 2, dude. Yeah, we just have to shave Mikola. That's all we gotta do. The blindness is maybe half the difficulty. You're not wrong. Right? You're not wrong. Being completely unable to see shit. Yeah, Peeve, you're still stuck on this asshole? Fuck, dude. They went really ham on this guy. Right? Like, I've never seen a Souls boss have an unavoidable attack. Or if it is unavoidable, maybe it is avoidable, the dumb 1, 2, 3? You have to just eat shit. I'm like, this is crazy. Maybe there's something you could do about it, unlock, relock type shit? It's crazy. Yeah, well, that's the thing. You could just use a shield. You could just use a shield. But here's the difference in that, In most Souls games, they'll usually accommodate the fight to not have to do the one thing. You can approach it from like a large variety of ways. So it's very odd that it's got these like nearly impossibly timed things that you got to get through. Where it's like, bro, I really got to learn this shit. Like, holy hell. Phase 2 takes so long to even get an understanding of what the hell to do. Yeah, you can't deflect while power stancing. Yeah, we were saying how we were gonna mod out Mikola's hair. We're just gonna remove it. Just delete the fucking files. At some points, I'm like, I have fully avoided this phase 2 shit. I did it. I am behind this dude. Time for me to take advantage. Oh no, it was the front of him. Because the hair swooped around, and the hair was like covering the front of the boss. And I was like, oh no, I'm fucked. It is so hard to see. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. Peeve, who is your favorite boss? I know you haven't beaten it yet. Goddamn, did I love Mesmer. I'm wondering if other, like, Souls players feel the same way. Mesmer was so good. It might go down as one of my favorite boss fights, like, in a Souls game. To me, it's the perfect amount of difficulty. It took me just, like, under 3 hours. It was perfect. The second phase is crazy and wild, but it is avoidable. Bale, okay, don't get me wrong, I like Bale a lot, but Bale is the best dragon fight in a Souls game ever. Dragon fights are at varying levels of good or bad in a lot of these games. But Bale's definitely the best one. Really? You think Radahn's the best one? Okay. I need to play it more. I need to play it more. I just gotta sit and grind it out. I finally engaged Elden Ring with cheese. And I got a taste of how easy this game is for some people. And I'm like, dude, almost every engagement I had in my first playthrough was literally run up to monster and whack it. Sometimes throw magic at it and then whack it. Dude, to run around and be a piece of shit and just toss this shit at things constantly was hilarious. I was like, dude, this game got so much easier. Difficulty is 100% scalable. Like, absolutely is. So, I don't know if I loved that about it. It was just so effective that I just kept doing it, you know? I appreciated the difficulty. I might be weird on that.
He appreciated the difficulty, he says, even though he decided to play with the cheesy spear and cheese most of it.
The one thing I will give this DLC is this map is amazing. This map is so much more better than this map. And I thought this map was really good. But with perspective now, half this map kind of sucks. Half this stuff is not great. It's only okay. To me, to be real, dude, this map was like... The whole thing was like a FromSoft dungeon with like incredible level design stuff and discovery, constantly like looking at this place, having these focal point of views of just like, wow, that's over there, but that's over there. How do I get there? Jesus, I got here from here. And you get that sometimes, but a lot of these maps are so segregated. Like you don't really get a lot of experience of any other map from Limgrave. Caelid is sort of isolated in its own way. So is Liurnia. And then these are all super isolated areas, right?
He keeps praising the map and the level design endlessly, as if it's the only thing that matters. Motherfucker, you are not playing Journey. This is a combat-based game.
I don't think like the DLC significantly curbed the minor gripes I had with Elden Ring overall. All it did was really surprise me with the quality of map 2. This map is godlike, dude. The variety, how beautiful some of these places are. Like, I'm just gonna travel to these locations and show you the sprawling, I call them FromSoft vistas. Like, holy crap, dude. It is so friggin' pretty. It's so cool how they give you this, like, this look at all of this shit in this game. I love it. I absolutely love it. I love the way new areas are introduced to you. How they're just like around a corner. You're just like, hey man, what's down here? And then you see this. You're like, holy shit, dude. What is happening? This is crazy. That happened a couple of times in Elden Ring proper. And it felt like every single new area I went to was just like, holy god damn, dude, this is crazy. This is so cool. This game is like effectively super high art. Like really high art in terms of what the video game industry is. More so than most games. I don't know. I just think I adore Miyazaki's games so much. The hero of these games, in my opinion, is the map. The hero is not the combat. The hero is not the story. I'll be real. It's not with these games, at least with me. The hero is like the dungeons that are in this map and the map itself.
The hero of the game might be the map and the level design, since they are what's carrying the entire game. But you can't just ignore all the problems. In your very review video, you are supposed to inform the people who are watching about the rest of the stuff, the positives and the negatives, so they can also make the decision whether they are going to like the game or not, whether they should buy the game or not. You can't just start worshipping a game and call it a review. That's not informative, especially coming from someone who built his entire career playing video games with good gameplay. Now let's take a look at his impressions of phantombladezero, a very promising game.
I will say, the first thing you're going to notice is that the combat doesn't feel anything like a Souls game. It's much more, quote-unquote, I'd say mashy. And that's not particularly a bad thing. It's more mashy in terms of it wants you to press attacks. It reminds me a lot more of something like a Metal Gear Revengeance, but what I immediately compared it to was Ninjagaiden. First and foremost, the biggest vibe I got from the game was that, oh, this feels a lot more like a Ninjagaiden than it does a Souls game. There's a weapon switch mechanic and there's a cooldown for it, so you can actively weapon switch mid-combo. The Souls-like elements come in the level design. As the director explained to me, the director's a huge fan of Souls games, right? But doesn't particularly love Souls combat. He's much more of a fan of Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, of like devilmaycry and Ninja Gaiden. So, there is one thing that he loves about Souls games, and it's the levels. And that's what he said the game will have in terms of being a Souls-like. He wants much more action-oriented combat, but he wants Souls level design. So that's what they're going for. They said it's not like Nioh. It is more like shortcut based and more locked doors and things like that, where you have to like traverse and figure out where to go. He's a huge fan of, you know, Souls games levels. So that's sort of where they're going with this. They're trying to do that. And he also gave the comparison to, like, you know, Team Ninja efforts in some ways, and he's like, it's very different than that.
So the developer of phantombladezero wants to combine the level design of the Souls games with the combat of Ninja Gaiden games. That sounds like something I would do. Looks like the developer has identical thinking to me.
Just a description of the action. All the action is on the face buttons. So like square is light attack and triangle is heavy attack. And there's a bunch of different attacks that you can do combo-wise in there. There is a stamina gauge. As you can see, it's going down. So to me, this game is a mix of like Sekiro and Ninja Gaiden. That's probably where I'm going to say it's the closest to. The game wants you attacking. It wants you engaging the enemy constantly. So there's that moment, right? And these build meter. See, I just got it. I just got enough meter, now I get the super, which I think was with L2. This is what I mean, it's a little mashy. It wants you hitting a lot of buttons. It really wants you hitting a lot of buttons. And yeah, you can parry projectiles. It's kinda sick.
So essentially it has the defensive mechanics of Sekiro when you can parry and break the enemy posture, but instead of standing there and waiting for the enemies to attack you, you are playing a fully offensive game with the occasional parries. So yeah, the game looks sick, but here's what I find funny. He spends the entire video talking about gameplay, the one thing that he barely mentioned in his Elden Ring reviews. I wonder why. Now suddenly gameplay matters again. Does he care about gameplay a lot, or does he not? Is this guy shilling From Software games and grifting their massive audience, or has he gone actually senile since he is almost 40 years old? I can't really tell, honestly. If he is a shill and a grifter, then he is definitely one of the smartest ones, because he is hiding it well enough for me to not be able to draw conclusive evidence. The one guy I can call a grifter though is justinwong. He is another guy who built his entire career playing fighting games, and he is one of the best players in the world. But lately, the growth of his channel has become stale, because there are just so many people interested in fighting games. So what did he decide to do next? Try different things, right? Like playing Elden Ring. But instead of trying to understand what the game is all about and using his knowledge of what skills are to explain what the game is all about, he decided to go full soul-starved, just turning his brain off and calling it the hardest game possible. Calling the tree Sentinel harder than any fighting game boss is beyond ridiculous. Someone who has never touched a video game could start an Elden Ring run and they would have as much trouble with the tree Sentinel as anyone who has never touched a soulslike. More or less, you know, after getting accustomed to the controller and all. But the hardest fighting game bosses are so insanely ridiculous. Even the best players in the world need insane skills and still tons of time to beat them. Taking someone who has only played soulslikes and making them fight one of the hardest fighting game bosses is pretty much giving them a completely impossible challenge. Learning the basic special moves for the first time in a fighting game can take entire hours. Learning the hardest combos can take entire days. Applying all of that while fighting an insane boss will take entire months of skill honing. But of course he doesn't care about that. Telling Souls fans the truth about fighting games would just have them act rabid and make you their enemy, since their ego is too fragile to handle the truth. Instead, you can instantly pretend you are one of them, pretend they are right, and you immediately start gathering all these morons to your audience, since you know the only thing they seek is validation for their bullshit beliefs. It's sad to see that even the best players or the most charismatic personalities are willing to become slaves to big numbers.
Everything is lies.